All right, so talking about some of the things that we just discussed in terms of deciding what kind of design you want for your face and how realistic and how pushed you want it. Let's talk about some of those things and how it relates to interpreting your expressions from reference. Okay, here is me copying a facial expression from, here's my face smiling. And what I'm trying to do here is I'm trying to copy exactly what my face looks like. So I'm looking at the mouth and I look at my lip line here and I'm seeing how that looks and this little turn up there and the shape here. I can't do it perfectly with this rig, but I can get close. I'm trying to copy that exactly. I'm also copying the eyes as close as I can. The eyes are much bigger here, so I obviously can't get an exact representation. Keeping that in mind, I'm trying to think, all right, it's a pretty balanced relationship between here and here on the white. So I'm creating a fairly balanced relationship as well, fairly center. On this side, I see a lot of white here and I see no white here. I think it's there, but it's just hard to make out. Maybe it's in shadow a little bit. So I'm choosing to show it a little bit here. Also, I'm following my brow shape here as much as I can. I have an overall, this overall arching shape. I'm trying to follow that overall arching shape. And then, of course, the lid shape as well. This is a relatively flat lower lid. So I'm doing that here, relatively flat on both sides. So notice here that this eye is a little bit more squinted than this eye, just slightly. So I'm doing that as well on this eye. I took some time to follow this, in great detail. And what we ended up with was an expression that does not look good, right? It just doesn't. It looks horrible. I mean, this is not an expression I would use in animation. And this is an example of how copying reference in regards to posing does not work, at least with the face. Now, are there occasions that certain aspects of it can work? Absolutely. I shouldn't say it doesn't work. I should say that you have to make sure you make your choice that's best for your character. Don't just do it because it's in your reference. That's the idea here. Okay, now I've posed it to what I think looks good for an animated shot. And that looks much better, right? And so now what I've done is I've simplified the mouth shape. I've given the mouth some asymmetry. Now we can see a subtle amount of asymmetry in my smile here. Not a lot, but there's a little bit. Where you can see this side of my mouth is slightly more pushed up than the other. So I'm like, okay, when we talk about getting asymmetry in animation, that's all grounded in real life, right? There's asymmetry in our faces. It's not just made up stuff, but it's exaggerated and pushing it. So there I'm getting a little bit of that asymmetry here, which I think, works, and a simplified shape. And now my eyes, I'm now posing the eyes based on what I think looks better for this character. Less almond shaped typically looks better. If I wanted this guy to squint, that would be a squint, right? But I don't want it to feel like he's squinting. I'm choosing to show more white on top, and I'm raising the lower lid. I'm also giving some asymmetry in the eyebrows to support the asymmetry in the mouth here, where this side of my mouth is up and this brow is down. And I'm converging the pupils together. Now, I think this is a really good way of understanding of why we, cross our eyes so much in animation. It's because typically our eye anatomy is very different than real life, and the eyeballs are giant and the eye openings are so big that you see so much white. You have to favor the center more, or else your eyes are just going to look wall-eyed. This, of course, looks wall-eyed, right? That looks much better. Now, there's something that I did here that's typical. Usually it always helps to favor the direction of where the pupil is. And so in this case, because the pupil is on this side of the eye, it's good to usually peek the eyelid towards where the pupil is. So if I had the character looking screen left, I might do something like that. Not a whole lot on the outside. I mean, typically you don't want to do that too much when you're going the other way, but you at least pull back a little bit on that peak there. Okay, so now let's look at how I might go from here. So there's this expression which works for animation, right? Now this might even be more interesting. This is if I want to push it even a little bit more. And so what are the things that I changed from here to here? what some of the concepts that I'm actually trying to accomplish here.
The asymmetry.
Yep, definitely pushing the asymmetry quite a bit.
His face is opening up screen right more.
Yes, it is for sure.
You're going more graphic on the mouse here?
I am. Yeah, I'm trying to think what would I do if I wanted to go with that more graphic, 2D cheat. And so notice I'm tucking in this part of the mouth more, right? This feels a little bit more typical, like three-dimensional. This feels more cheated three-dimensional, right? I mean, we know it is cheated. Of course, when you watch this, if you were to see that face, you wouldn't hopefully not pick up on that. Hopefully you would just read it as an appealing mouth shape. Of course, as an animator, once you do that, you know that it is. It actually doesn't look too bad from the front view, but not exactly how I'd pose it if I was posing it from the front view. But here, I think this looks pretty good. And of course, I'm accomplishing that by translating. Yeah. So I'm doing things like this to accomplish it. In this case, I'm doing that, right? So I'm making that choice. I'm trying to make this lip a little bit flatter here and then angling up there. When possible, it looks nice to get a more half circle shape where this is flatter. And in this case is a happy character, right? He's smiling. So I'm pushing this up to get this flatter and then keeping this round on top. So bending the face, cheating the mouth, more graphic. This you could also say is a little bit more graphic versus this, which is more, almond shaped, right? You could say that the emotion is more pushed too. Typically, when you push the design elements of an expression, it also does exaggerate the emotion of it too. So is it possible that this same eyelid shape and that can exist in the same shot? Absolutely. And can this smile and this smile exist in the same shot? Yeah, I think so. I mean, this smile, the feeling of these two smiles do feel a lot different side by side, but they can probably still exist in the same shot. One is definitely more pushed than the other. So pushing design can also have a tendency to push the emotion. And finding the subtleties and the in-betweens sometimes means you're going a little bit more subdued on the design element of it. And I think that can be okay.